Excel Health is a 3-hospital health system in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania. Slightly over $500 million in annual revenue and about 5,000 employees. So in addition to our 3 hospitals, we have a large physician network with about 200 physicians and a number of extenders. And brought in initially by our president and CEO just prior to my starting. So Bob had called me right before I had started and asked me if I knew of the firm, and I told him that I had been in healthcare quite a while and that the firm had an excellent reputation, and that if he thought we needed a soup to nuts review of our revenue cycle processes, that I was in favor of it. And okay. So I inherited the engagement from our president and CEO, but I've sort of been in charge of it since I started there. I think in hindsight it was an excellent idea, okay. Actually. Our RCS took a comprehensive look at the revenue cycle from A to Z. So they looked at everything that a flow chart would lay out in terms of all the processes that occur throughout the revenue cycle. They also looked at all of our technology solutions, because we have a number of technology solutions that are put in place. What we learned throughout the engagement is we weren't maximizing the effectiveness of all of those technology solutions. Most of them were between 50% and 70% utilized. And so that was one of the big benefits, I thought, of the engagement, was their look at the technology. And then they weren't shy about taking a look at our people and being candid with me as the CFO in terms of where we had pockets of strength and where we had to shore things up. As a result of RCS's work, we enhanced all of our technology processes, which has made us more efficient. We patched up where we had several leaks in the rev cycle. For instance, their charge master review. The charge master review alone probably paid for the engagement, because they found places where we were either not capturing supplies or services that we were delivering, or we were significantly underpriced in those areas. And so that was a big finding for the engagement. On the physician side of the house, they brought a lot of attention to areas in which we were underperforming on revenue cycle, and quite frankly, we still have a lot of opportunity on that physician side of the house, but they brought a big spotlight and brought those to my attention. One of the other big benefits that Revenue Cycle Solutions brought to us was the scorecard they developed. They developed a very comprehensive scorecard so that I, as the CFO, on a monthly basis, can keep an eye on where we made improvements and are we continuing to keep at those benchmark levels. I've asked RCS to come back now twice a year and update those benchmarks so that we can continue to measure our performance against what industry best practices are. RCS's team is a very seasoned team. Almost all of them have worked on the provider side at one time in their careers, so they know what it's like to be in the hot seat in terms of having to bring cash in the door and keep those days in accounts receivable down to an acceptable level, and to manage those denials. So they don't approach it like a consulting firm that has no provider experience. They bring real provider experience to the table, and you can see that when you meet with them and speak with them. They've been in my shoes. They know what I'm talking about. Oh, I think they interacted well with our staff. I was holding RCS accountable to get things done by certain deadlines and on budget, and so there were times they had to push my staff, and when they had to do that, I thought they did so in an appropriate and professional fashion. And on occasion, when my staff wasn't responsive, they felt the need to come to me and say, "Tom, you need to be aware that we're falling behind in this area, and here's why." and we're trying to work collaboratively, and so it was a good give and take. They did get the projects done on time, and in addition to my feeling pretty good about the value RCS delivered, I think my staff feels the same way. For a busy CFO, that scorecard saves me dozens of hours every month, because it puts on a very succinct 4 or 5 pages all the key metrics that I need to know. And if I've got a problem or a leak, I'm going to see it right away. But the scorecard it's very comprehensive, and like I said, it's very succinct. And the key to its being useful was I showed up at the first couple of meetings having almost memorized it. And so when I had staff that came to that meeting and they didn't hit their numbers, and I called them on the carpet on it, it was eye-opening to them. And so in subsequent meetings, they came prepared, and it drove positive performance, because they knew it wasn't just something I was receiving an email on and not reviewing. I was reviewing it very carefully. So they know I'm looking at it, and as a result, I think they're managing their metrics much tighter than they were before. Oh, we love it. We're going to continue it. Now that RCS has completed the engagement, we will be continuing to have that forum in which we can vet issues and challenges across the whole revenue cycle team. As you know, Bill, problems in the revenue cycle are often multifaceted. They can initiate in operations, they can initiate in admissions and registration, they can be on the back end, but it's all interconnected. And by having everybody in the room in one forum for a couple hours every month is a real advantage, and it's a real time saver. When I went to that first meeting and walked in the room, and there were probably 20 people in the room, and I said to myself, gosh, what a waste of time this is going to be. And now with RCS gone, I'm the one who's saying we will continue this meeting.
Great. That's
so
great.
It's a great idea. The mentoring that occurred, I believe, occurred the proper way without me in the room. Because if I'm in the room, there's a bit of a barrier, and there's a little bit of defensiveness from the staff who want to ask questions and it's okay to say to a consultant, I heard your question, but I really don't know that answer. Maybe you could educate me. And so I didn't observe that mentoring, but clearly the relationships that were developed between my management team and RCS, which have continued since the end of the engagement, have shown me that yes, there was some good positive mentoring that went on. I can only speak for myself. The communication with the CFO was excellent. The team kept me apprised when things needed to be brought to my attention. We had a weekly phone call that I had with some of the senior members of the team on the engagement that kept me apprised of things. And on occasion, we would meet for breakfast to talk about some sticky issues that needed to be resolved in order for the engagement to proceed. So I thought the communication was excellent. I never felt like I didn't know what was going on. Well, if they're looking for an independent and objective review of their revenue cycle, including the maximization of the IT, because that's something that most people, you don't know what you don't know. And RCS's ability to look at our technology solutions, inventory them, and identify those items that we were paying for but not using. that's something that you might not know until you bring someone like RCS into the fold. So even if you're hitting all of your metrics, there may be some things that are being done inefficiently today that RCS could help you identify as adding efficiencies to the revenue cycle. Again, the engagement was initiated by my boss before I started. In hindsight, I'm thrilled, and I'm a very fortunate CFO to have that occur at the outset of my engagement, because every CFO has a revenue cycle kind of hanging over their head, and every CEO thinks their revenue cycle is broken. Getting this engagement performed and generating enough value out of it that it paid for itself has kind of alleviated this whole issue that I don't have to worry about it if I stay at Excel for the next 5 or 10 years. Our revenue cycle, particularly on the hospital side, is humming very nicely.